The knock on the door came at 3 a.m. It wasn't the police or some late-night delivery guy. It was her. I had no idea how long she had been standing there. The only thing I knew was that my heart sank when I heard the soft tap-tap-tap echo through the hallway. I hadn't heard from Clara in weeks, not since the argument that felt like a small crack in the foundation of everything we had built together. I hadn't expected to hear from her again, let alone in the dead of night. But there she was, at my doorstep, with the kind of look in her eyes that made my blood run cold. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. It wasn't her. When I opened the door, she didn't speak. She didn't even smile. She just stood there, drenched from the rain, her face pale and almost blank, as if everything she had known had been erased, and she was now just a shell of the person I thought I had known. Clara? I asked, the name barely leaving my lips before I felt a wave of confusion and dread wash over me. She didn't respond at first. She just stepped inside, past me, without even acknowledging me properly. Her wet shoes left a trail of water on my hardwood floors as she moved further into the hallway. I stood there frozen, unsure of what to do, what to say. My thoughts were a mess, like a jumbled puzzle I couldn't piece together. How was she here? Why was she here? She turned around, finally, her eyes meeting mine. I made a mistake, she said, her voice flat and emotionless. I blinked, trying to understand what she was saying. A mistake? Clara, you disappeared. You stopped calling. I didn't know where to start, how to piece together the shattered conversation we hadn't finished. I should have told you sooner, she interrupted. Her eyes didn't meet mine anymore. She was looking at the floor, at the old rug near the door, like she couldn't face me. But it's too late now. I've been seeing someone else. Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't ready for them, and I definitely wasn't prepared for the emptiness that came afterward. It wasn't the shock of betrayal. It was the sudden understanding of how much I had been blind to. I hadn't known it, but now that she had said it out loud, I could feel it. All those little things, those odd behaviors I had brushed off for weeks, months, now made sense. The late nights at work, the strange silence when we were together, the constant sense that something was missing, like a ghost was haunting our relationship. And now, in front of me, the ghost had a name. Her lover. She hadn't just cheated on me. She had been living a different life, one I was never supposed to see. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, to make her feel the pain I was feeling. But instead, I just stood there, numb, as she continued to speak. I didn't want to hurt you, but it's done, she said, as if it were a decision she had made long ago. I can't come back, Ben. I'm in love with him. The words echoed in the silence of the room, and for a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. I had spent years believing in this relationship, in this love that felt real, only to realize it was all a lie. A carefully constructed lie, one that had taken everything I had, my trust, my time, my heart, and broken it into pieces. I don't know why I'm here, Ben. I thought I owed you an explanation, Clara said, her voice now trembling. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. I wanted to ask her how long it had been going on. I wanted to know if there was a moment when she knew, when she chose him over me. But the question never left my lips, because I already knew the answer. The truth had been right in front of me all along. I just hadn't been brave enough to see it. She took a step toward me then, but I instinctively stepped back. Something inside me recoiled at the idea of her being so close, knowing everything she had taken from me. I should have stayed away, she murmured, more to herself than to me. I didn't know how to leave you. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a breakup. It wasn't some simple betrayal. This was about control. Power. The way she had left me in the dark, in the void, hanging onto a thread while she built a new life with someone else. She hadn't just left me. She had left me helpless, powerless, as I clung to a relationship that wasn't even real. I don't need your apology, Clara, I said, my voice hoarse, but steady. I need you to leave. She didn't say anything else. She didn't fight me, didn't argue. She just turned around and left, like she was walking away from a life that no longer belonged to her. I stood there in the hallway, the rain still beating against the windows, and felt something inside me snap. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. For the first time, I felt free. But little did I know, this was just the beginning. The night felt longer than usual after Clara left. I stood in that empty hallway, staring at the door she had just walked through, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been ripped away from me. Not just the relationship, not just the love. Something deeper, something fundamental, like I had lost a part of myself in the process. I spent the rest of the night sitting in the dark, too stunned to do anything else. My mind kept racing, trying to piece together the pieces of a puzzle that I didn't even know existed. Clara, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved, was gone, and she wasn't coming back. But what haunted me the most wasn't her confession. It wasn't even the fact that she had been seeing someone else. It was the way she left. The look on her face, like she was a ghost drifting away from something she had outgrown. She didn't seem remorseful. There was no anger, no regret, just resignation. And that's what made it worse. It was like I had never mattered enough to fight for. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions, waking up, going to work, coming home. But everything felt hollow. The apartment that had once felt like home now felt like a foreign space. The silence was deafening. The smell of her perfume, which used to comfort me, now made my stomach turn. I kept expecting her to walk through the door, to smile that soft smile that always melted my heart. But she didn't. I spent hours scrolling through her social media, trying to figure out when things had gone wrong. The posts, the pictures, the comments, all of it seemed so perfect, so curated. But now, looking at them, I couldn't see the truth behind the filter. I couldn't see the lies. How could I have missed it? How could I have been so blind? But it wasn't until I saw the text that everything clicked. It wasn't from Clara. It was from a number I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was just another spam message, something that would be easy to ignore. But then I read it. The message was simple, but it was enough to send my heart into overdrive. I need to talk. I don't think Clara's coming back to you. She's made her choice. She's with me now. And you're not going to like what's coming next. I didn't know who this person was, but I knew one thing. They knew too much. Too much about Clara and about me. My blood ran cold as I read the message over and over. What did they mean? She's made her choice? What was coming next? I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't just brush it off. I had to find out who was behind this. I had to know what Clara had gotten herself into. I had to know what I was about to lose. I tried to call the number, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent a message back, asking who they were and what they wanted, but I didn't get a response. It was like they were playing some kind of twisted game with me. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I had to face whatever was coming head on. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went to the one place I knew I'd find answers, her ex's house. I knew it was risky. I knew I might not get any answers. But I didn't care anymore. I was desperate to understand. I needed closure, even if it meant stepping into a situation that could make everything even worse. But if Clara had truly moved on, if she had chosen him, I needed to hear it from his mouth. I needed him to tell me to my face. When I arrived, I didn't knock. I didn't even ring the bell. I just walked right up to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The door opened, and there he was. Theo, the man who had been the shadow in the background of Clara's life for months, maybe even longer. He was standing there, looking at me with a smirk, like he had been waiting for this moment. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice dripping with arrogance. I didn't know how to respond. I had so many questions, so many things I wanted to say. But instead, I just stepped forward. "I need to know the truth," I said, my voice shaking. "Is it true? Has she really chosen you over me?" He didn't even flinch. "You really don't get it, do you?" he said, shaking his head. "Clara and I, we're a match. We always were. You were just the distraction, Ben. You were the safe choice, the one who didn't challenge her. But that's not what she needs. She needs someone who can keep up with her, someone who can give her what she wants. And that's me." I felt a wave of rage flood over me, but I couldn't show it. I couldn't let him see how much his words hurt. But deep down, I felt the sting of rejection. It was like a punch to the gut, and I couldn't breathe. "So what now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "What happens next?" He leaned against the doorframe, his smile widening. "What happens next, Ben, is that you finally realize you're out of the picture. Clara and I are moving on. She's going to start a new life with me. And you? Well, you're just going to have to deal with it." With that, he closed the door in my face. And just like that, everything I thought I had, everything I thought I was gone. I stood there in shock, the reality of his words sinking in. It wasn't just about Clara anymore. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the fact that everything I had worked for, everything I had believed in, had been ripped away from me in an instant. But as I turned to leave, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to let this happen. I wasn't going to let them win. There was more at stake than just my pride. There was my life, my future. And no matter what it took, I was going to take it back. The war wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. The next few days passed in a haze of anger and confusion. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything around me was crumbling, falling apart like sand through my fingers. The weight of what had happened, what Theo had said, what Clara had chosen, was almost too much to bear. But I couldn't let it consume me. I couldn't let them win. I spent hours searching through my phone, scrolling through old messages, looking for something, anything, that would give me an explanation. I even went through Clara's old texts, the ones we'd sent each other when things were good, when we were happy. It felt like a lifetime ago, and the more I read, the more I realized how many red flags I had ignored. There were hints of something off in her messages, small things I had dismissed, late nights she claimed she was working, the vague answers when I asked her about her day. How could I have been so blind? But then, the phone call came. I didn't expect it, not after everything. The number on the screen wasn't one I recognized, but I answered it anyway, driven by the need to know, to get some kind of closure. Ben. The voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm. It was Theo's voice. I know what you're thinking. You're wondering how you got here, how everything fell apart so fast. But that's not what I want to talk about, he said, his voice tinged with something I couldn't quite place. I want to give you a chance to make a choice. A real choice. I felt a chill run down my spine. What are you talking about? I asked, already regretting that I had picked up the phone. I'm not here to fight you. You're going to lose, Ben. But I'm offering you a way out. A way to save face. I know you don't want to hear this, but Clara's done with you. It's over. His words hit harder than I expected. But you can still walk away with something. I'm giving you a choice. A choice? What could he possibly mean by that? A part of me wanted to hang up, to ignore whatever game he was playing, but another part of me, the part that was desperate for answers, needed to know. What choice? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I'm giving you the chance to take your dignity and walk away. I know you're going to want to fight for her, for what you had, but let me tell you this. It's not worth it. You're not the man she needs anymore. She's made her decision, and it's not you. If you keep pushing, it's just going to hurt you more. So take this as a final chance to walk away, and I'll make sure you don't have to go through the mess. No drama. No custody battles. No public fights. Just move on. I could barely process what he was saying. Was he giving me an out? Or was he just trying to break me down even further? Either way, I couldn't ignore the truth in his words. Clara had already made her choice, and I was just the man left behind, standing in the wreckage of something that had once meant the world to me. You think this is about me saving face? I shot back, trying to regain some of the control I had lost. You think this is about dignity? You've already taken everything from me, Theo. I don't have anything left. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear him smirking through the silence. You're not the only one with something to lose, Ben, he said, his voice darkening. Don't forget that. If you make this harder than it needs to be, you'll regret it. And I'm not the one who's going to pay the price. Clara is, but I'm sure you'll figure that out soon enough. The line went dead before I could respond. I stood there, staring at my phone, my mind racing with everything he had said. Was he threatening me? Was he trying to push me into a corner, to force me to back down? It felt like a twisted game, one where the rules were constantly changing, and I was always a step behind. I thought about what he had said, about Clara and the life they were building together. He was right about one thing, it was over. But what he didn't understand was that I wasn't going to just walk away quietly. I couldn't. Not when everything I had worked for was slipping through my fingers. That night, I made a decision. I would confront Clara. I needed to hear it from her, face to face. I needed to know the truth, even if it destroyed me. If she was really done, if she had truly chosen Theo over me, then I would know. But I had to hear it from her own lips. I texted her, asking her to meet me at our old cafe. The place where we used to go on our first dates, where we shared laughs and stories, where everything had once seemed so simple. It felt fitting, somehow, that this would be the place where everything would come crashing down. I didn't know what to expect when I saw her. I didn't know if she would show up, or if she would turn her back on me for good. But I had to see her, to hear her tell me the truth. When I arrived at the cafe, my heart was in my throat. I sat at our usual table, my hands gripping the coffee cup in front of me. I could feel the weight of the past few weeks pressing down on me. The betrayal, the lies, the pain. Everything had led me to this moment, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. And then she walked in. Clara looked different. There was something cold in her eyes, something I hadn't seen before. Her posture was stiff, almost guarded, and when she saw me, she didn't smile. She didn't even greet me. She just sat down, her gaze locked on mine, as if waiting for me to speak first. I opened my mouth, but no words came out at first. I wanted to scream, to ask her how she could do this to me, to us. But instead, I just whispered, "Clara, is it really over?" She looked at me for a long moment, and then, in a voice that was quieter than I expected, she said, "Yes, Ben, it's over." Those words, simple yet devastating, hit me harder than anything Theo had said. I wasn't ready for the finality of it. I wasn't ready for the truth to hit me like a freight train, crushing everything I thought I knew. I took a deep breath, fighting back the rush of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. "So, you and Theo, you're really going to do this?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Clara nodded. "Yes, we are. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, but I've made my choice." Her words felt like a knife in my chest. She had made her choice. And now, I had to make mine. I stood up abruptly, the pain in my chest unbearable. "Then this is the last time we'll talk," I said, turning away. "Goodbye, Clara." I didn't look back. I couldn't. The night I left Clara behind was the longest night of my life. I didn't know if I was numb, angry, or just in complete shock. I walked out of that cafe, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind scrambling to catch up with the words she had just said. I've made my choice. The finality of it echoed in my head, over and over, until I couldn't escape it. She had chosen him. Theo, the man who had become the shadow lurking in the background of our lives, and now he was front and center in the life she wanted to build. I wasn't part of that future anymore. I didn't go home that night. I didn't want to go back to the apartment that had once been ours, that place where we had shared everything. The laughter, the quiet mornings, the dreams of a life we were building together. Instead, I ended up at a small bar on the corner of a street I didn't recognize. It was the kind of place where no one cared who you were or what you were doing. I sat at the bar, ordered a drink, and tried to drown out the thoughts that were racing through my mind. But no matter how much I drank, the reality kept creeping back in. The images of Clara with Theo, the words she had said, the emptiness of her gaze when she told me it was over, it all felt like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Clara's face. And then I saw his. Theo, the man who had taken everything from me. The man who had somehow wormed his way into my life without me even realizing it. The next morning, I didn't feel any better. I wasn't ready to face the world, but I had no choice. I knew I had to figure out what to do next. It wasn't just about moving on from Clara. It was about taking back my life. About finding some way to claw my way out of the mess they had left me in. I tried to focus on work, tried to throw myself into something that would give me a sense of purpose, but everything felt pointless. I was numb to everything except the thought of them, of Clara and Theo, moving on without me. A week passed, and I was slowly starting to realize that the world I once knew was gone. Clara had moved on. I had to too. But the hardest part wasn't just the fact that she had chosen him. It was the fact that she had done it so easily. She had moved on without a second thought, while I was left to pick up the pieces. I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know how to deal with the anger, the sadness, the frustration that consumed me every waking moment. One evening, as I sat in my apartment staring out the window, I heard a knock at the door. My first thought was that it was Clara, maybe coming to apologize, maybe to explain herself. But when I opened it, I was faced with a man I didn't recognize. He was taller than me, with a scruffy beard and a dark jacket. "Ben?" he asked, his voice low and almost cautious. I nodded. "Yeah. Who are you?" He looked around nervously, like he wasn't sure if he should even be here. "I'm a friend of Clara's." My stomach twisted. "A friend? I don't think I know you." The man seemed to hesitate, then spoke again, his tone more serious. "I'm not here to cause trouble, but I think you need to know something. You need to hear it from me, not from her or Theo." My heart skipped a beat. What was he talking about? Clara had moved on. She had made her choice. What else could there possibly be? What do you mean? I asked, feeling a knot tighten in my chest. The man glanced behind him, then stepped into the apartment without waiting for permission. I didn't have the energy to stop him. He sat down on the couch and looked at me, his eyes filled with something that made my blood run cold. Clara didn't leave you for Theo, he said, his voice low. She left you because of something else. Something you don't know about. I froze. What could he possibly mean by that? Clara had made it clear that it was over. She had chosen Theo. What other explanation could there be? I'm listening, I said, my voice hoarse. He took a deep breath before speaking again. Clara didn't just start seeing Theo. It goes deeper than that. Much deeper. There's something about him that you don't know. Something that might change everything. I was barely holding it together. What are you talking about? Why are you telling me this now? Because, he said, his voice turning urgent, Theo isn't who you think he is. And Clara, well, she's not the woman you thought she was, either. I know you're angry, but you need to know the truth before you make any decisions. Before you do something you'll regret. I was struggling to keep my composure, but the words were coming so fast that I couldn't process them. What truth? What do you mean? The man stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the dark street below. Theo is dangerous, Ben. He's been playing games with Clara for months. He manipulated her. He got her to believe things about you, things that weren't true. And now he's using her to get something he wants. I felt my pulse quicken. What the hell are you talking about? What does he want? The man turned to face me, his expression grave. It's not just about Clara. Theo has a plan. He's been using her to get to you. And I'm not sure you even realize it, but you're part of something much bigger than you think. You need to be careful, Ben, because what you're about to find out isn't going to be pretty. I stood there, unable to speak. My mind was racing, trying to piece together the fragments of this new reality. Clara hadn't just left me for Theo. No, there was something else going on. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just a simple love triangle. There was something much darker at play here. Something that could change everything. And I wasn't ready for what was coming next. I stared at the man in front of me, trying to make sense of the words he had just dropped into the air like grenades. Everything inside me screamed for answers, but I didn't know where to start. I felt like the rug had been yanked out from under me again, and now I was struggling to catch my breath. Was Theo really manipulating Clara? Had he really been using her to get to me? The more I tried to piece everything together, the more questions I had. And the more questions I had, the deeper the hole seemed to get. The man who had come to me was pacing now, clearly unsettled. His eyes were darting around the room as though he was waiting for someone to jump out of the shadows. I didn't know if he was just another one of Theo's pawns or if he was someone who genuinely cared, but I was beginning to feel that none of this was going to end well for me. The feeling in my gut was unmistakable. I was in over my head. He turned back to me, his face more serious than before. Listen, Ben, I'm not here to play games. I'm trying to give you a heads up, because if you don't understand what's happening right now, you're going to regret it. Theo's been playing both sides, and he's using Clara to do it. My mind was racing, trying to absorb it all. What do you mean playing both sides? I thought they were just in a relationship. Isn't that enough? The man let out a bitter laugh, his face hardening. You don't get it, do you? It's not just about love or some affair. It's about power, control. Clara's not just some innocent bystander in all of this. She's been a part of his plan from the start. And as for you, well, you're the final piece of the puzzle. Theo's been pushing all the right buttons to get to you, Ben. He's been slowly pulling you apart, making sure you're distracted, making sure you're confused. And now, he's ready to make his move. I could feel the blood draining from my face. The cold, sharp terror that had been creeping in the last few days had just escalated into something far worse. What move? What was he planning? And why had Clara been so involved in this from the beginning? Before I could ask another question, the man's phone buzzed, and he glanced at it before looking back at me with a grim expression. I can't stay here much longer. But if you want answers, you need to go to the place where this all started. You need to see it for yourself. You need to understand what Theo's been hiding. He stood up abruptly, heading for the door. I couldn't keep up with his sudden urgency. Wait, what do you mean? Where do I go? What do I need to see? His hand was already on the door handle, but he paused. You'll know when you get there. Just remember, don't trust anyone. Especially not Clara. She's too far gone now. You've got to figure this out before it's too late. And with that, he was gone. I stood in the silence of my apartment, still trying to piece together the last few minutes. What the hell was going on? Why was Theo targeting me like this? What was his game? And how had Clara gotten tangled up in it all? I had no choice. If I wanted answers, I had to take the man's advice. I had to find the place where all of this had started, the one place where I could unravel the truth. And I had a feeling that whatever I found there would change everything. I had no idea what to expect when I reached the address he'd given me. A small, unassuming building tucked away on the edge of town. It looked completely ordinary from the outside, but there was something about it that felt wrong. My instincts were screaming at me to turn back, but I couldn't. I had already come too far. The door was locked when I arrived, and I hesitated for a moment before knocking. There was no answer, but I tried the handle anyway. To my surprise, the door creaked open, and I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway was dimly lit, with the faint smell of stale air hanging in the room. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I had to find something, anything, that could give me the answers I needed. I crept down the hallway, the floorboards creaking underfoot. Every step felt like it was taking me deeper into the unknown. The further I walked, the more uneasy I felt. But I kept going, knowing that I couldn't turn back now. At the end of the hallway, I found a door slightly ajar. My hand shook as I reached for the doorknob, and as I pushed it open, a wave of cold air rushed past me. The room beyond was empty, save for a small desk and a few scattered papers. But something was off. The desk seemed too neat, too purposeful, as though it had been set up for a very specific reason. As I stepped closer, my eyes landed on a file sitting open on the desk. My heart stopped when I saw the name on the cover, Ben Warren. I reached for the file, my hands trembling. I felt like I was about to uncover something that I wasn't supposed to see. The pages inside were filled with notes, details about me, about my life with Clara, and about my job. Every part of my life was laid out, dissected like it was all some kind of twisted experiment. But it wasn't just about me. The notes went into Clara's life as well. Every interaction between us, every moment we shared, was there in black and white. But the thing that made my stomach drop wasn't the information about me or Clara. It was the final page. It was a photo of Theo. And behind him, there was a picture of me. But not the man I had been. The picture was of the person I was about to become. A puppet. A pawn. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Theo wasn't just trying to take Clara from me. He was trying to destroy me, manipulate me, break me down until I was nothing. And Clara, she wasn't just his lover. She was part of his plan. I slammed the file shut, my head spinning. I couldn't breathe. Everything I had thought I knew was a lie. I had been living in a game that I didn't even know I was playing. And I was losing. But not anymore. I wasn't going to let him win. Whatever it took, I was going to fight back. Because now, I knew who the real enemy was. And I wasn't going to let him destroy me. Not without a fight. The feeling of the file in my hands was like holding a live wire. I could barely process the contents of it, but the message was clear. Theo wasn't just a man who had seduced Clara away from me. He was methodical, manipulative, and everything in our relationship had been a part of his twisted game. He had orchestrated everything from the start. Our first meeting, the quiet tension I'd felt with Clara in recent months, even the things I had thought were innocent misunderstandings. It had all been calculated, all meticulously planned. He wasn't just after Clara. He was after me, my life, my peace of mind. And he was using Clara as the perfect pawn to do it. I slammed the file down on the desk, and my head spun as I tried to wrap my mind around the enormity of what I was dealing with. The walls of the small room felt like they were closing in on me, suffocating me as I realized how deeply I had been drawn into a world I didn't even know existed. How had I missed the signs? How had Clara missed them? Or maybe she hadn't. Maybe she was just as tangled in this as I was. I walked over to the window, the chill of the night seeping into my bones. The city outside looked peaceful, calm, nothing like the storm brewing inside me. I had spent days, weeks, trying to hold on to something that no longer existed, trying to piece together a relationship that had been shattered long ago. But now I saw things clearly. I wasn't just fighting for my life back. I was fighting for my survival. Theo had been plotting this for far longer than I could have imagined. But why? Why target me? What did he want? I couldn't figure it out, and that uncertainty gnawed at me, the anxiety wrapping around my chest like a vice. If he had so carefully laid out his plan, then the endgame was nearing. And whatever it wasn't going to be good. I knew I couldn't stay in that room forever, not with that file burning a hole in my mind. I had to get out of there, but my mind kept circling back to the same questions. How was Clara involved in all of this? Had she been aware of his manipulation all along? Or had he ensnared her, too? The thought of Clara, the woman I had once shared everything with, being just another cog in his scheme, made my stomach churn. I had to confront her. I couldn't just sit back and wait for Theo to make his next move. I had to face Clara, even if it meant confronting the truth I wasn't ready to hear. She had chosen him, yes, but she didn't know everything. Maybe, just maybe, if she knew the whole story, she would see the man Theo truly was. Maybe she could break free. But when I tried to reach out to Clara, she wouldn't answer. I called her phone, sent messages, and left voicemails, but there was nothing. It was as if she had disappeared off the face of the earth. Her silence was deafening, and I felt the last thread of connection between us snap. A week passed. Each day felt like a year. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every corner I turned, I felt like I was being watched. Theo's presence was like a shadow hanging over my every move. I had a strange sense that he knew everything I was doing, everything I was thinking. Then, one night, after an unbearable silence, I got a message. It wasn't from Clara. It wasn't from anyone I knew. The message was simple, cryptic. You can't run forever. It's time to face what's coming. Meet me where it all started. My heart stopped. I recognized the phrase immediately. It was the same place Clara and I had first met, the same cafe where we had shared our first date, where we had laughed and talked for hours. It had been a place full of hope, full of promise. Now, it felt like the stage for a final confrontation, the place where the truth would finally be exposed. I didn't hesitate. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I couldn't ignore it. This was it. This was my chance to understand everything that had been happening, to finally take control of the narrative before Theo could dictate it all. I arrived at the cafe just as the last of the evening light disappeared. The familiar aroma of coffee and pastries was gone, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to linger in the air. The tables were empty, the lights dimmed. It felt abandoned, like a place suspended in time. I sat at our old table, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't know who I was waiting for, whether it would be Theo, Clara, or someone else entirely, but I knew one thing. This was the moment where everything would either fall into place or completely unravel. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out to find another message. You're not alone in this, Ben. Don't trust Clara. She knows more than you think. I didn't recognize the number. Panic surged through me. What was happening? Who was sending these messages? I was being pulled deeper into a game I didn't understand. And it was clear now, there were more people involved than I had thought. I looked up to see a shadow approaching through the glass door. It was him, Theo. He walked in slowly, his movements deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. There was a confidence in his step, a coldness in his eyes. He had always been calm, composed, like he was in control of everything. But this time, I could see the edge in his gaze. He was ready for this moment. You came, Theo said, his voice almost a whisper as he sat across from me. I didn't think you would, but I guess you're not as naive as I thought. I couldn't speak. The words stuck in my throat. I wanted to ask him why, how, when, but none of it made sense. The weight of everything was crashing down on me. I had no idea what he was going to say, but I knew it would change everything. I think you're starting to understand, Ben, Theo continued, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. You've been part of this from the beginning. Clara, everything you've done, everything you've built, it was always leading to this. And now, it's my turn. I clenched my fists under the table. What do you want from me? Theo leaned back in his chair, his smile widening. I want you to see the truth. The game was never about Clara. It was about you. And now it's over. I felt like the room was spinning. This wasn't just a fight over a woman anymore. This was something much bigger. And I was just beginning to realize how deep the rabbit hole went. What game had I been a part of all this time? And more importantly, how far was Theo willing to go to finish it? Theo's eyes bored into mine, unblinking, as though he was daring me to understand. His presence filled the room, thick and suffocating. He wasn't just sitting there, calmly as he always did. No, this time there was something different about him. A new darkness that I hadn't seen before, a calculated coldness that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I knew, without a doubt, that I was in a battle that had nothing to do with love or betrayal. It was something far more sinister. And I was running out of time to figure out exactly what that was. You still don't get it, do you, Ben? Theo's voice was smooth, like he was explaining a simple concept to a child. He leaned forward, his hands clasped in front of him. Everything that's happened between you and Clara, it was never about her. It was about you from the start. You've been the pawn in my game all along. I felt my stomach twist. Pawn? What are you talking about? You've been with Clara. You've been manipulating her, lying to her. She was your target all along. My voice was shaky, the rage inside me threatening to boil over. I wanted to lash out, to break whatever facade he had been building, but I couldn't. I had to hold it together. Not just for myself, but for the answers. Theo's lips curled into a smile, like I was the one who didn't understand the rules. No, Ben. Clara was just convenient. She was the way in. The perfect distraction. It's you I've been after all this time. You're the key to everything. You're the reason everything's been falling into place so perfectly. I blinked in disbelief. What? What are you talking about? I don't even know you. Exactly, Theo said, his voice lowering to a whisper. You don't know me, but I know everything about you. Every little thing, every weakness, every fear, every dream you've had, I've been watching. I've been planning. I felt the blood drain from my face. My throat tightened, the weight of his words pressing down on me. What do you want from me? I choked out. I wanted to punch him, to scream at him, but something in the pit of my stomach told me that I had to understand this. I had to hear him out if I wanted to survive whatever he was planning. Theo smiled again, but this time it wasn't the smug, calm smile I was used to. It was something darker, more dangerous. You've been living in a lie, Ben. You thought everything was just normal, but it wasn't. It was all a setup. I needed to get to you, your mind, your trust. I needed to see how far I could push before you cracked. And you've done exactly what I wanted. You've played into my hands every step of the way. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room felt thin, suffocating. No, this can't be true. You're lying. You're telling me you've been, what? Messing with me for months, for years? Over what? My voice rose, but my hands shook. The rage inside me surged again, but it was mixed with something far worse, fear. Theo's eyes glinted. Over everything. You think Clara and I are the only ones with a plan? No, Ben. We've been working together. And the thing you don't realize is that I've been setting you up for something much bigger. Something you're going to regret not seeing coming. I couldn't believe it. Every word he said felt like a punch to my gut. I had trusted Clara. I had loved her. And now, I was realizing that I hadn't even known who she was. Or maybe I'd been blind to the person she had become. Someone who had joined forces with him. Someone who had been part of his plan all along. I don't care what your game is. I spat, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. You've got nothing on me. Clara's gone. I'm done with her. And whatever it is you want, you're not going to get it. You're not going to ruin my life any further. Theo chuckled, that same eerie calmness in his voice, like he had already won. Oh, Ben, you think it's over? You think you can walk away from this? You think I haven't planned for this exact moment? You're more involved than you realize. And if you think Clara just left you, you're sorely mistaken. You've always been the center of my attention. My mind reeled. What could he possibly mean? Was he threatening me? Or was this just part of his mind games? I don't care about your threats, I said, trying to steady my voice. I'm done. You've taken everything from me. I'm done playing whatever twisted game you've been pulling me into. Theo's smile widened, a glint of something almost victorious in his eyes. It's too late for that, Ben. You don't get to walk away from this. Not now. Not when you're this deep into the game. He stood up, his movements slow and deliberate. He was savoring this. You still don't know the full story. You think Clara left you because of me. You think she's the one who walked away. But you're wrong. It was never about her. She was just a pawn. Just like you. I could feel the sweat on the back of my neck as he leaned in closer, his words cold and deliberate. You're a bigger part of this than you think. And once you see what's really going on, it's going to break you. You're not going to have anyone left. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating, as his words cut through the silence. I wanted to run, to get out of there, but I knew I couldn't. He had already taken control. I had walked into his trap, and now there was no escaping it. Theo wasn't just playing games with me. He had been preparing for this moment for far longer than I could have ever imagined. And I was the last piece of his puzzle. I took a shaky breath, trying to force my thoughts into some sort of order. What are you going to do now? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to keep some semblance of control. Theo turned to leave, his back to me. He paused for a moment, then glanced over his shoulder. Now, Ben, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Now the real game begins. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there, in that cafe, once a place of warmth and hope, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. The weight of his words pressed down on me. What did he mean by the real game? What was he planning? I didn't know, but I was about to find out. And it was going to change everything. The next few days passed in a blur. I felt like I was drowning, caught in a storm that I couldn't escape. Theo's words echoed in my mind, every sentence like a drumbeat that was slowly driving me mad. The weight of everything he had said, the manipulation, the games, the lies, had left me reeling. Clara's silence only made it worse. The absence of her voice, her presence, made everything feel empty, hollow. I thought I had nothing left. I thought Theo had won. But then something strange happened. The silence started to feel less suffocating. The darkness that had settled in my chest began to feel a little lighter. The more I thought about Theo's game, the more I realized something. I had been playing into his hands. But I wasn't a pawn. I wasn't powerless. I had the power to break free from his control. I could choose how this ended. I took a step back from everything. I didn't need answers from Theo. I didn't need Clara to tell me what had happened. I needed to find myself again, to rebuild my life, piece by piece, without the shadow of Theo looming over me. And that's exactly what I did. I focused on my work, on the things that had once brought me joy before everything had been turned upside down. I started taking care of myself, both mentally and physically. I picked up old hobbies I had long forgotten and spent time with people who genuinely cared about me. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I thought I was losing my grip. There were nights when the loneliness crept back in, when the feeling of betrayal still stung. But slowly, I started to remember who I was. I started to remember that I wasn't defined by the games Theo had played or by Clara's departure. I was my own person, and I was stronger than I had given myself credit for. One evening, I was sitting in my apartment, a book open in front of me, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Clara. For the first time in weeks, my hands didn't shake as I reached for it. Ben, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know the truth. Theo used me. He lied to me. He manipulated me into believing things that weren't true. I've ended things with him. I don't expect anything from you, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. I hope you can find peace. I stared at the message for a long time, a wave of emotion flooding through me. It wasn't an apology I had been waiting for. It wasn't the kind of closure I thought I needed. But it was something more. It was an acknowledgement of the truth. And it was enough. I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. I had already made peace with what had happened. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. It was about finding my own path, my own happiness, without letting the past define me. A week later, I received another message, this time from an unknown number. Ben, it's me. Theo. I'm done. I've realized I can't keep playing these games. I've got nothing left. It's over. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry too. I sat back, the weight of the words sinking in. This time, the apology felt different. It didn't feel like a manipulation, a play for control. It felt genuine. And as I read it again, I realized something else. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to win the game. I had already won by letting go, by walking away, by choosing my own peace. The next few months were a slow but steady climb back to myself. I found new relationships, new friendships, and rediscovered a strength I never knew I had. I didn't rush into anything, didn't try to fill the void with anything other than self-love and growth. Slowly but surely, I began to see the world differently, not as a place of betrayal and pain, but as a place full of possibility, a canvas waiting to be painted with my own story. One day, I was walking through the park when I saw her. Clara. She was sitting on a bench, reading a book, her face relaxed in a way I hadn't seen before. For a moment, I hesitated, unsure of what to do. I thought about the past, about the pain, about everything we had been through. But then, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't holding on to resentment or grief. I was free. I walked over to her, my steps slow but steady. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine. We both froze for a moment, the years between us suddenly feeling like nothing more than a memory. Hi. she said softly, closing the book in her lap. Hi, I replied, a small smile tugging at my lips. How are you? She took a deep breath, as though she was gathering her thoughts, then said, I'm better. I'm working on myself. And I hope you're doing the same. I am, I said, the truth of it settling in my chest. I'm finally doing better. We talked for a while, about everything and nothing. There were no hard feelings, no apologies that needed to be made. Just two people who had been through hell and come out the other side stronger. As I walked away from that conversation, something inside me shifted. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was free. The past would always be a part of me, but it didn't define me. I had rebuilt my life, piece by piece, and I was finally ready to move forward. The world wasn't the same as it had been before everything had fallen apart, but that was okay. I had learned that sometimes things have to fall apart to make room for something better. And for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to whatever came next.